Chapter 10. Welcome to Tennessee. Hell is yourself, and the only redemption is when a person puts himself aside to feel deeply for another person. Tennessee Williams. The dark, unwelcoming barrel of the shotgun was the first thing his eyes focused on. The voice was the second. "Welcome to Tennessee, boy. Now get the heck out." The owner of the voice was male, with a thick drawl. He didn't sound particularly welcoming, but it was the shotgun that brought home the point with crystal clarity. Chris hurt, all over, and he was completely disoriented. For a moment he could not remember where he was or how he had gotten to be on the ground, covered by a filthy blanket. He blinked and tried to focus on the man behind the gun. The rising sun flared behind him, and all that Chris could make out was the man's outline. "I know you can hear me, boy, so's you best cotton to what I just said. Get the heck back from whence you came, now, before others less kindly than me find you." Someone who was less kindly than pointing a shotgun at him and telling him to get out? With a statement like that, Chris had no interest in meeting any others. The old man jerked his blanket away, exposing the uniform below. "We don't take kindly to the West telling us how we should live. 'Sides, I've heard some damn messed up stuff coming in whispers on the wind. You're lucky I don't shoot you right now, boy." Chris shook his head. He showed his hands were empty of weapons and tried not to look at the shotgun barrel, because it was making him damn nervous. "Sir, I was a conscript. They took our town, burned it to the ground, and killed most of us. I escaped, and they are probably hunting me as we speak." He tried to meet the man's eyes, but the sun was so damned bright. "I've got a broken ankle and no gun at all. I lost it when I nearly drowned in this damned swamp." As if on cue, the broken ankle began to throb mercilessly. He had hobbled for nearly a mile on it, practically screaming in pain each time he had to put pressure on it. The bones inside had scraped against each other in a way that would have made his skin crawl if he wasn't busy trying to not pass out. "Lake." "What?" "It's a lake, boy. Real Foot Lake. Formed when the New Madrid went ape crap about 200 years ago. Don't you pay attention to your history, boy?" Chris thought that it wasn't his history. He wasn't from Tennessee. Instead, he simply replied, I guess not, sir." The man just let out a harumph and stood there, not moving, just staring. Chris shifted uncomfortably, and the bones grated together. He barely stopped himself from shrieking in agony. He tried to slowly sit up and lean towards the injured ankle, but was pushed to the ground by the dark snout of the shotgun barrel. Rough hands went through his pockets, found the spare ammunition clip he hadn't managed to lose, and relieved him of his knife as well. Once that was done, the stranger held out his hand to Chris and slowly pulled him to a sitting position. "Let me see that ankle, boy." Chris could see that the man was old, 70s, maybe. His hair was white through and through. "I was a medic a long time ago now, but I ain't forgotten everything. Just my granddaughter's names occasionally, and they usually forgive me for that." He pulled off Chris's boot, which did earn a scream of pain. Chris was desperately trying to clear the black spots in front of his vision as the old man ran his calloused hands lightly over the swollen ankle. "Yep, that's broken and sure, that is." He looked thoughtfully at Chris, looked him over and looked him up and down. "Okay, this is what I'm a-gonna do. I'm gonna get you out of the open." He gestured to a stand of trees about 100 feet away. "And I'm a-gonna go back and get my girls out here to help get you to our place. Ain't no way you can walk that far, and ain't no way an old fart like me is gonna be carrying a fine strapping lad like you over my shoulder." With that, he pulled Chris into a standing position and looped the boy's arm over his shoulders. 100 feet felt like 100 miles. The swelling and throbbing of his broken ankle had him sobbing in pain by the time they reached the break of trees. The old man settled him slowly down against a tree. Chris's vision darkened and his head swam. "Don't you make a sound there, boy. Not a peep. Like I said, there's others won't give you the time of day, just shoot you when they see those colors. I'll bring back a shirt and jeans for you to wear. I'll be back in 2 licks." Chris barely registered the man's departure through the haze of pain. Eventually, he relaxed enough to doze lightly. It was a welcome respite from the throbbing fire that consumed his foot. The murmur of voices snapped him back to consciousness. 2 teenage girls walked with the old man. The old man had exchanged his shotgun for 2 long poles and a rucksack. The girls were both armed. Their slim hips bulged. Each wore a tiny revolver on one side and a sharp, long hunting knife on the other. They looked openly skeptical as they caught their first glimpse of Chris. The older one, she had to be close to Jess's age, eyed his clothes. "Gramps, you said he was hurt. You didn't mention he was the enemy." "He ain't the enemy, girl." "But he's wearing a Western Front uniform." The old man looked irritated. "And he's explained why, so's you better never mind." He bobbed his head towards Chris. "Boy, I brought you a change of clothes. You to take off those you got on and let us get 'em gone where no one else will go a-lookin'. Folks round here just as soon shoot you if they sees those colors. After you're good and dead, they might think of asking questions. So skivvy on out of them and put on these." He tossed the rucksack, and Chris caught it. He pulled off his shirt quickly and then looked distinctly uncomfortable. The taller girl rolled her eyes. "Oh, for Christ's sake, ain't nothing we ain't seen before." "Carrie Lynn Perdue," her grandfather barked. "Don't you use the name of the Lord in vain." She was instantly meek. "Yes, Gramps, sorry." Her grandfather harumphed and gestured for both the girls to turn away while Chris took off his pants. They rolled their eyes and grinned mischievously as they turned their backs. It took him a fair bit of time to maneuver with his swollen ankle, which had doubled in size from the night before. By the time he had put on the pants and buttoned his shirt, his head was swimming and he felt sick to his stomach. He closed his eyes and willed his stomach to settle. He was startled by the soft, warm hand that gently touched his forehead. Both of the girls were tall, slender, and had long blonde hair. The taller one, who the old man called Carrie, had emerald green eyes, and her younger sister had that half-blue, half-brown, half-something else that people usually just call Hazel. Right now, a pair of the most amazing green eyes were staring into his and looking concerned. "Gramps, he's got a fever, too." "I ain't surprised about that. Let's get him on the gurney and get him back to the house. Liza, you take these and burn them down at the pits. Make sure no one sees, and make sure they're burned up to nothing. Then you hustle yourself back to the house right quick, you hear?" "Yes'er," the girl chirped and disappeared into the woods with the bundle of clothes. Chris slowly stood up with Carrie on one side and the old man on the other. They helped him hop to the stretcher, a sturdy piece of canvas attached to the 2 poles, and laid him down on it. "I could try and walk," Chris said. His voice sounded embarrassingly feeble to his own ears. Carrie snorted, crouched down at one end, and gripped the poles. 1, 2, and 3. Carrie and her grandfather heaved him into the air and began to walk steadily. It wasn't long before they were huffing and puffing from the exertion. It took several sets of walking and then sitting down and resting before they reached their destination. What Chris could see of it from his limited view was a decent-sized farmhouse and several outbuildings. Several trees on the outskirts of the property had been felled recently, and Chris noticed that the view from the house was clear in all directions. It was a well-situated, defensible property. Anyone who tried to take the house would have zero cover for a good 100 yards in any direction. Unless you were suicidal or had a true hard-on for trouble, it would be advisable to find a better target. Liza caught up to them, materializing at Chris's right shoulder and grabbing half of her grandfather's side of the stretcher. "You didn't blindfold him, Gramps. You shoulda." The old man's breathing was labored. "When I need your opinion, girl, I'll tell you what it is. You let me do the worrying about this fella. You burn those clothes down to ash?" Yes, sir." She tripped over a rock and lurched to the left, and the 3 of them all stumbled and nearly dropped him. Chris's damaged left ankle wrapped hard against the undamaged right, and he passed out.